an 80s car. This is an iconic Japanese little hot hatchback meant to go toe-in-toe against Volkswagen Golf and GTi. I am sat behind, this is a 1988 Honda CRX with a 5-speed manual transmission. This is a classic car. It's almost a 35-year-old car, and I've always loved little hatchbacks that this car is, like my own 1997 Volkswagen GTi and my 1998 Golf K2 that I have. Plus my brother used to have a whole bunch of Civic two-door SI, DX, and a Honda Prelude. So we have a lot of love for Honda and the hatchbacks, whether if it's from Honda or Volkswagen. So I want to take an opportunity to drive this car, this classic car that it is, and tell you a little bit more about its features, power, history behind it. And towards the end, obviously, we're going to be doing some more driving and tell you the pros and cons about it. If you're new to this channel, make sure to check out the link on another Japanese icon that we did. It's a 1994 Mazda RX-7 with the rotary engine. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. That's one of the ways that gets our channel growing, and I hope you enjoy this show. All right, guys, let's talk a little bit more about this 1988 Honda CRX. Honda introduced the CRX as its first generation to the world in 1983, and it ran all the way to 1987. They had been seeing the success of Volkswagen Golf and GTi, and also Ford Pinto, and I'm sure some other brands. So they decided to come up with their own unique hatchback, which incorporates a really unique glass hatch design that I'll show you later on. And they wanted to get it out in the market, and they wanted to say, okay, we did it too. So they didn't want to miss out on market share. So the second generation, which is this car, was built in 1988 all the way to 1991. And then the third generation was 1992 through, I believe, 95. But in the United States, we didn't have that being called a CRX. The third generation in the United States was called Honda Del Sol. In some other markets was called Honda CRX. This 1988 Honda CRX HF had the least powerful engine of the engines that was offered to come to the United States. This one, HF, means high fuel, which basically focused on fuel efficiency. It only had a 1.5 liter engine, and it wasn't a car that you would just want to speed or, you know, have fun with. This was meant solely to get you the highest gas mileage. And if I'm not mistaken, it would get you between 36 to 44 miles per gallon, 36 being city, 44 highway. So you had about 40 miles per gallon combined. If you wanted to have some performance with this Honda CRX, Honda gave you a choice. You had the Honda CRX SI that at its highest engine performance was able to pump out 160 horsepower. Imagine having 160 horsepower on a car that weighs about 1,900 pounds. This is a Japanese version of Volkswagen GTi. This is a hot pocket rocket, and this is going to be absolutely blast to drive, and it truly a collector's item. All right, guys, let's talk a little bit more about the engine of this 1988 Honda CRX HF. However, before doing so, I'll tell you more about the Honda and their philosophy of building this car. Honda had been seeing how successful Volkswagen's Golf and their performance version, the GTi, was, that was introduced in 1970. And they didn't until this car, the first generation of this car, was built in 1980. So they missed out on a whole generation and a whole lot of sales, and they wanted to have a car that could keep up or even beat the Golf and GTi. So they came up with the first generation of Honda CRX that was built in 1984 through 1987. Now that generation had two engines. One was sport, one was economy, and the economy was making 58 horsepower and the sport was making 130 horsepower, so not a lot of power. The second generation of Honda CRX was introduced to the world in 1988. In the United States, we had three trim levels. First one was called Standard, also unlabeled, or DX. It had a 1.5 liter 16 valve engine, was making about 92 horsepower. Second one was based mainly or designed mainly on the concept of fuel efficiency. It was called the HF, or high fuel efficiency. It also had a 1.5 liter 8 valve 4-cylinder engine, but it had a whopping 62 horsepower. The third version was called an SI, Sport Injected. That one had 1.6 liter, 16 valve and 4-cylinder engine, and that one was making 108 horsepower. The one that you see here is HF. The owner of this car has done an engine swap on this car and changed the HF engine that was making a whopping 62 horsepower to a DX engine that make 92 horsepower originally. However, he's done some air intakes. He has, speaking of the exhaust, let's take a listen to this exhaust that has been modified, and for a 4-cylinder 100 horsepower car, it actually has a nice growl to it. Take a listen. Alright guys, let's talk about the wheels and brakes on this 1988 Honda CRX. It just happens to be the smallest wheels and brakes that we've ever covered on Rad Rides. The owner of this car has replaced the original stock wheels with these 14-inch red line alloys, and the tires are 195/50s both in the front and in the back. The brake rotors are only 8.9 inches in the front. Now if you remember, we've had some cars that had 15.5 or 16-inch brake rotors, but these are only 8.9-inch rotors. It's a 1-piston caliper. The rear brakes are brake drums, so they're not even disc brakes. This just shows you that since this car weighs only 1,900 pounds and the top speed of it is probably 90-some miles per hour, you do not need to get some 6-piston brake calipers with 15.5-inch rotors to stop this car. Honda thought you don't need that stuff, so that's why you get what you get. Let's talk a little bit about the styling of this car. Typical 80s Japanese car, or for that fact, a lot of 80s cars were boxy like this car. You got your corner lights integrated into the bumper. That's actually pretty neat. You got a little bit of opening here to cool down this massive 1.5 liter 62 horsepower engine. You got the little Honda emblem. Moving on the sides of this car, I've always loved these semi-flared fenders that this car has. And you can definitely see the theme of black and white, moldings, rocker panel, mirrors, and the trim around the window is black. The body obviously is white. Really small profile that you see here. I always love this small roof that it has. Coming on the back, really love this small hatch that you see. Glass on top, then you got a little piece of metal here, and then obviously glass again right here. And then these lights, connected lights that in the middle indicates that it is a Honda CRX. Very clean and basic design, nothing flashy about this car. And the owner of this car has put on a big muffler for this car. The interior of this car is as simple as it gets. The owner has covered up the dashboard so it doesn't get cracked under the California sun. Coming to the gauges, you got your speedometer, and on the odometer is saying 260,000 miles. Yes, this is a Honda of earlier generations that had great reliability, and they can do 260, 300, 400,000 miles easily. Then you come to your fuel gauge, you got your coolant temperature, you got your tachometer. 5,000 obviously on this HF model. I'm pretty sure on the DX is going to be more since it has an engine swap. Basic controls, you got your turn signal, you got your windshield wipers. Moving on, we have a couple of central vents that you can control with these dials. It's pretty cool. Then you have a very basic and rudimentary climate control with AC being optional. The radio head has been replaced by the owner. He wanted to put a CD changer with a Bluetooth option. Coming down, we have a little area that you can put your cell phone or wallet right here. Then you have your lighter, cigarette lighter, and your ashtray. The car comes with a 5-speed manual transmission, 5 forward gears, and the reverse will be where the 6-speed is. And the owner, as you see, has changed the gear shifter. And when you come here, you have an actual handbrake, and then you can release it like this. Seats are pretty sporty. I like the side bolstering on them. It looks pretty cool. And it's got the word CRX on there. This car did not come with power windows. It's super simple. You got the level to open the door. You got your lock or unlock level right there, and then you got the manual control for the windows, and the owner has also installed a little tweeter for the stereo system. Driving the Honda CRX, the first thing I can tell you is that you can definitely feel every road bump that you come across. This thing is very low to the ground, and I think part of it is because the owner has lowered it with its sport suspension, and it has 260,000 miles on it. This thing is super fun to drive, mainly because it is a manual transmission car. I've always been biased towards manual transmission cars, and I've always hated the fact that manual transmission is slowly becoming a thing of the past. Less and less automakers are putting manual transmission in their vehicles, and the cars are becoming more computerized and digitized, and you know, they got all these fancy transmissions, ZF, paddle shifters and all that stuff, but there's nothing about being able to control the car yourself with the clutch and gas feeling. These cars for sure will become much more desirable as they're getting older. This is a 35-year-old car, and there's not that many Honda CRXs running around. We're in Southern California. You do see them because there is no rust, and a lot of people are able to preserve their cars. If you have one of these CRXs, especially the SI model, make sure to hold on to it. If you don't have one and you want a car that will be fun to drive, it's easy to maintain and very reliable, and it's going to be a classic, make sure to purchase one. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of Rad Rides, driving this classic and iconic hatchback from Japan, the Honda CRX. We had absolute blast driving it. I really enjoyed driving a manual transmission, as I mentioned, and we can't wait to show you more videos of other cars that have significance in automotive history. We usually like to do 2 cars per week. If you're new to this channel, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and stay tuned. We will definitely have more cars that have significance in automotive history. Thank you again, and until next time.